Welcome to Victor Narrates Reddit. Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Now, let's begin. Gentlemen, do cheaters deserve to be punished, or will karma take care of things? What do you all think? Let's listen to some stories about adultery. On Thursday, Bob sat at the table, his gaze fixed on the Miller Lite bottle in front of him. He had decided to have only 6 bottles, realizing he didn't want to get too drunk in case the situation suddenly took another turn. When the music upstairs stopped, he knew his wife had almost finished packing her things. Bob normally worked late on Thursdays because his wife and her friends organized bachelorette parties. His parents would pick up their daughter, Cy, and his wife would go out for drinks with her colleagues. During that time, Bob would stay at work doing paperwork so he could leave early on Friday and be with his family. Everything seemed to have been carefully planned. He found time in his busy work schedule. His parents enjoyed playing with their granddaughter, and his wife enjoyed socializing with her friends. At least, that was what he thought. As his wife went to the bathroom, he remembered having lunch with Vicky last Tuesday. He thought about how delicious their sandwiches were and decided he needed to go to the shop more often or explore delivery options. As he was looking toward the entrance, he noticed a familiar figure entering the restaurant. Bob stood up and waved. She noticed him and walked over. At 31, Vicky was the oldest of Bob's wife's friends. Bob liked her, especially because she was the only one who was already married. Vicky had a special knack for smoothing things over without being annoying. Bob couldn't deny that her dark, wavy hair and fair skin made her very attractive. Although she wasn't the best at chess, her beauty and long legs more than made up for it. Vicky's husband, Ron, considered her a blessing from heaven, and Bob couldn't disagree with him. Sitting across from him, she expressed her gratitude to Bob for taking the time to meet with her. "I know you're very busy, Bob, so I appreciate you making time for me," she said, looking him in the eyes. Bob felt grateful. "No problem, Vicky," he replied, "but I have to admit, meeting without Sharon is a bit strange. I usually prefer to have lunch with my wife, but when it's something related to Sharon, I'm all ears. I assume you're planning a surprise for her birthday next month." Bob was stunned by the sadness he saw in Vicky's eyes. "When it comes to our lunch and Sharon's birthday, Bob, I see that you and Sharon love each other. It's undeniable. I've seen enough to know how strong your relationship is. That's why I'm here. Maybe our friendship will end, but if it means saving your marriage, I'm ready." Bob was in shock. "This must be a joke, and a very creepy one," he told Vicky. "I'm sorry, Bob, but this is very serious. Since you started working on this project 3 months ago, Sharon has been feeling down. She was quiet at work and showed no interest. After a few drinks, she confessed that she misses you and feels neglected. According to her, it seems like you're just fulfilling your duties as a middle-aged spouse, letting life slip away." At that moment, the waiter came to take Vicky's order, and she chose a Cobb salad with lemon and ice. Bob's thoughts were consumed by his wife's silence during their 8 years of marriage. He was sure she would always confide in him. If she was unhappy, they were always open and honest with each other, even when they disagreed. Turning to Vicky, he asked urgently in a whisper, "Did she sleep with him?" Vicky replied, "Not that I know of. Your wife is usually very open about everything. That's why her behavior surprises me." "Bob, there's something you should know. All the women I spoke with expressed similar feelings. I can assume that both of you often talk about feeling overwhelmed by the demands of daily life," Vicky explained. When Sharon mentioned this, we all sympathized with her and said, "She's a wonderful woman who deserves more attention from you." Unfortunately, my sister was there that night. "What does your sister have to do with this?" Bob asked, barely containing his anger. The waiter serving his tea raised an eyebrow. Vicky took her seat before continuing. "Our parents were unfaithful to each other. Although I don't know which of them cheated first, their relationship was filled with desires to get revenge on each other. When I was 17, I wondered why they stayed together, but they dismissed me, saying their love was the only thing that mattered. This situation has affected my sister and me in different ways. I thought she was getting over ruined relationships, while my sister thought it was acceptable if there was love. I love her, but she's deluded. My sister Gail advised them to seek love outside of a relationship if they couldn't find it at home. I disagreed with her, but then Han and Gail started talking about finding a new partner and hiding it. I guess they discussed it hypothetically, especially since they're not married. Sharon said she would never change, but I'm afraid her sister's words might have planted seeds of doubt in her mind. Bob questioned, unsure of Sharon's loyalty, and began to analyze the situation more deeply. Although the information revealed to him was difficult to digest, Bob firmly believed in the importance of knowledge. The following week, Luke Jonas and his team showed up at the Red Horse Bar. Sharon insisted she hadn't invited him, but mentioned plans for a group dance. Although it's generally nice when more people join new events, it's not pleasant in Luke's presence. After learning his name, Bob realized the truth of the saying, knowledge is power. Vicky noticed Bob's confident attitude, laughed lightly, and continued. Luke Jonas has a reputation for harassing women. He actively pursues any woman who shows interest or anyone who succumbs to his charm. He doesn't distinguish based on marital status or attraction. He simply enjoys the thrill of the chase. Your wife caught his attention previously, but he didn't pursue her until that night. Now he's actively pursuing her, and she, instead of confronting him, prefers to avoid him. It's widely known that if Luke is accused of another inappropriate harassment, he will be fired from his position, despite the possibility of ending his courtship. She prefers not to. In recent months, they have often been seen talking in the cafeteria. When I try to bring it up, she got defensive, claiming they were just friends and that Luke was a good listener who understood her problems. I asked if she would act the same way if you were present, and she blushed, admitting she wouldn't. Then she got upset, mentioning that she felt unnoticed by you. After that, I stepped back and started observing her closely. Everything seemed to have calmed down at work, and I thought everything was back to normal until that event 3 weeks ago. When the food arrived, Vicky began to eat. Bob, watching her closely, took a sip of lemonade. His mind was on other things. He couldn't understand why she would think he'd be upset by her flirting with another man. He knew he didn't have an excessive sense of possessiveness because he fully trusted and loved his wife. Reflecting on the fact that he hadn't been paying attention to her, he wondered if he had gotten too carried away with his work project. In the end, he would receive a substantial reward, but perhaps he had gone too far. The incident that occurred 3 weeks ago continued to haunt him with curiosity. He was ready to get to the truth. Bob and Vicky sat in silence for the next 5 minutes, giving him a chance to digest her revelations. He was undoubtedly upset. She had no excuse for such a close relationship with another man, and yet, to some extent, he could understand her reasoning. If he had been more attentive, perhaps this situation could have been avoided. By not revealing her flirtatious actions, she was indeed deceiving him. Ignoring her lies, he decided to clarify the situation and talk to her about what was bothering him. If she was honest and wanted to distance herself from Luke, they could solve this problem. He was sure they could handle it if nothing serious had happened in the last 3 weeks. With this attitude, he gained a sense of stability and was ready to face whatever came next. Vicky looked at him sympathetically. "This is where things get worse," Bob said. 3 weeks ago, we met again at the Red Horse Bar for dancing. Luke and his friends approached, and we had a lot of fun dancing together. Sharon drank more than usual, and Luke kept buying her drinks, which resulted in her getting very drunk. I took her to the bathroom and saw she was even more intoxicated than I expected. When she came out of the stall, she was holding her underwear in her hand, saying she wanted to feel free, since she was already drunk. I attributed her actions to the alcohol and accompanied her back to our table. I tried to convince Han and Gail to help me take Sharon to my house, so she wouldn't drive home in a state of severe intoxication. But my attention was drawn to Sharon and Luke, who were sitting comfortably, bumping into each other and playfully mimicking intimate actions on the dance floor. After the group dance ended, the rest of the night seemed blurry to me. I saw Sharon stuff her underwear into Luke's pocket as the song ended. To the amusement of everyone in the bar, Luke smiled widely and leaned in for a passionate kiss. A friend captured this moment on his phone. I wanted Sharon to refuse, but she accepted. When she saw Bob's reaction, she apologized, saying she was very sorry. His mouth was open in astonishment, which made her stammer an apology and go to the bathroom. He locked himself inside to collect his thoughts. As he splashed water on his face and clung to the sink, he was flooded with memories of a night Sharon came home late again, this time at 2:30 a.m. after Vicky called and said she would stay with her due to excessive drinking, which had happened more than once. Bob was always grateful to Vicky and the girls for not letting Sharon drive drunk. Recalling how intense their intimacy had been that night, he noticed a change in her behavior. He felt betrayed by her apparent excitement for another man and anticipated a conflict when she returned home. What if she was thinking about him while we were together? He asked himself. Gathering his strength, he returned to the table, noticing the sympathy in Vicky's expression but not knowing how to react. The untouched sandwich lay in front of him as he pressed for more details. Vicky simply answered honestly, "Bob, that's everything." The last bachelorette parties were Han's house. Vicky noticed that Sharon seemed to have distanced herself from Luke, even though he kept pursuing her. As soon as Vicky thought their relationship was over, she saw them talking just yesterday. Their conversation ended abruptly when she approached, leaving Vicky unsure of what was really going on between them. "I thought you should know because she no longer listens to her friends," Vicky explained. When the waiter brought the bill, Bob quickly grabbed it, looking for his credit card. "I'd like to observe their communication," he suggested. "This week, you ladies are going to the Red Square Bar on Thursday. When you go, I'll be watching for distance," he said, and suddenly stopped when he noticed the worried expression on Vicky's face. "What did I say wrong?" Bob asked. Vicky explained, Hen has to go to the doctor on Friday morning, and Gail is going to her brother's house in Florida. If Sharon goes out on Thursday, we won't be with her. Vicky reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm so sorry, honey," she said bitterly. "I know it's probably not the best idea to ask how you're doing, but here's my home phone number. Call me anytime to talk to Ron or me," Vicky suggested. Her husband was a marriage counselor, so talking to him could be helpful. "Thank you for telling me about this, Vicky. I know it was hard for you, but I truly believe you're a good woman and a good friend. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I'm aware of the current situation and can take some steps. Thanks again." Bob expressed his gratitude, paid the bill, and left. Today was a significant milestone in Bob's project. They successfully secured the supply of finished parts from a startup company in Harrisburg. This achievement not only reduced the lead time for the job by 2 months, but also guaranteed at least a week's supply despite issues with unstable transport logistics. 2 more phone calls, and the entire plan could have been completed 2 months ahead of schedule, which would have saved the Army millions of dollars. Additionally, Bob was counting on a substantial cash bonus and an improvement in his reputation due to the project's success. He should have been as happy as a cat that got the cream. But instead, he was thinking about how he didn't want to go home and solve problems he knew needed to be solved. Deciding to get to the bottom of the matter, he decided to take things into his own hands. Although he didn't have access to her work email, he was skeptical they were using it to communicate, as the Human Resources Department was monitoring it. He tried logging in her Yahoo Mail, but found nothing suspicious. Perhaps she had a secret account that he could only discover by logging into her home computer. Bob admitted his ignorance of technology, realizing that the idea of buying security cameras or installing voice-controlled microphones seemed appealing in theory. Despite this, he developed a plan. His goal was to gather as much information as possible to assess the efforts needed to save or end the marriage. Sharon had already picked up their daughter Sai from her parents and asked him to bring Chinese food. When he asked how she was feeling, she replied that after 10 years of marriage and 8 years of married life, he should already know that she loved him. Bob couldn't resist responding sarcastically that he just wanted to make sure she was still happy with everything. Sharon asked for an extra dish. If it weren't for the explosive news, he would have been happy to come home early and spend time with his wife and child. Looking at his watch, he was still in shock. He realized that according to the project timeline, he should have arrived 2 hours later. He realized he hadn't been home with his family this early on a Friday since the project began. Fatigue and stress helped him realize that Sharon might feel left out, though that didn't justify her actions. Upon entering the front door, he saw his wife reaching for a bottle of wine. He paused, admiring her figure. At 31, she was the embodiment of femininity. She was just over 5 feet tall, and her curves were alluring even in loose sweatpants. After tying her hair into a ponytail, she turned to him with a radiant smile, and he felt incredibly lucky to have her. But then reality hit him. "I'm so glad you're home, honey. How's work going?" She approached him and kissed him on the lips. "Very well. We've made a significant breakthrough on supplies, so we'll be able to finish the project at least a month ahead of schedule. My love, I realize I've been away from home a lot lately because of this project. I wish I could share all the details, but they're classified. But please know that you and Sai are my top priorities, and I will do everything I can to ensure our safety," he assured, looking deep in her eyes. There was a hint of regret or guilt in her gaze, or was he just overthinking it? He often cursed his inability to read people, preferring direct communication. He believed in honesty and scrupulousness, and this method had served him well for 34 years. He saw no reason to change it now. "Oh, my dear," she replied, "we both love you and understand. I wish you were here more often, but I know it's temporary. Still, I appreciate you acknowledging it." She seemed to be on the verge of tears. Was she genuinely moved, or was she just acting? "And how will completing the project as soon as possible help you?" she asked as she took the food containers out of the bag. "First of all, it means a significant bonus will be added to my salary. The exact amount hasn't been determined yet, pending project approval, but it's definitely not small. Additionally, the successful completion of our first government project could bring in additional orders for the company. As the project manager, I can offer lucrative opportunities to government contractors who need my help. If everything goes according to plan, it can be very profitable," he clarified, trying to eat sweet and sour pork with chopsticks before switching to a fork. "Hadn't I told you before?" he asked between mouthfuls. "Not that I recall, dear," she answered. "All I remember is you talking about some important contract that was confidential but sounded promising. It seems we haven't talked since then," she said with a hint of sadness, but immediately brightened up. "But it looks like my husband will be back soon," she added in an even more cheerful tone. He looked at her. "So, which bars are you going to tomorrow night? Maybe I should stop by after work to make sure you're okay and can get home," he asked casually. "Actually, we decided to go to the Red Horse Bar to dance with friends, but I think we'll be done before you finish work," she replied. Just then, Sai finished her egg roll and asked her father to tell her bedtime stories. He set his plate aside, rinsed it in the sink, then picked up his daughter and carried her to the living room. For the next hour, he read story after story until she fell asleep. Soft snores could be heard from the couch, and he saw his wife curled up with a book in her lap. He carefully picked up his daughter and carried her upstairs to bed. He tucked her in carefully, making sure she was comfortably wrapped under the blankets. As he thought about the difficulties they would have to face the next day, his eyes filled with tears. He hoped his daughter would cherish memories of these quiet nights with her parents and not the hardships that lay ahead. Wiping away his tears, he quietly went downstairs to where his wife was sleeping on the couch. He kissed her gently on the lips and covered her with a blanket to keep her warm. Then he went to find her phone and found it charging on the nightstand in their bedroom. After unlocking her phone, he began to check her text messages. It didn't take him long to find what he was looking for. Going back, he followed their conversations for the last 3 months. He came across a message that caught his attention. "Luke, hey, beautiful girl. It was fun seeing you at the girls' dance last night." "Her, likewise. Bob works late on Thursdays and the in-laws watch Sai, so we had a girls' night." "Luke, your husband seems like a good guy for letting you have fun." "Her, yes, he's wonderful." The messages remained friendly for a while until one conversation stood out. "Her, Vicky talked to me about our lunches today. It upset me, but she was right about everything." "Luke, that's true. I don't want any confusion." "Her, Vicky asked if Bob would approve of our behavior, and I realized we might be sending the wrong signal. I also think I shouldn't be sharing all my problems with another guy. I need to talk to Bob about this." "Luke, I understand, but if you can't talk to him, you can always come to me. I'll take you to dinner if you want, just as a friend." Bob didn't remember her trying to talk to him, but maybe it was when he realized he needed food-grade stainless steel for the project. When he spent several days searching for a supplier who could provide the required quantity of products, he was so focused he wouldn't have noticed if a bomb had gone off next to him. If he remembered her messages, they all seemed harmless. It was quite clear to him that this idiot was flirting with her. How could she be so reckless? As he continued scrolling, he came across the next set of messages. Her, you have to give them back today. Him, what are you talking about? Her, you know perfectly well. My friends are mad at me, and I don't blame them. If Bob finds out I've been acting inappropriately, he could leave me. Him, so you don't want me to show him the video? Her, I can't let anyone at work see this. Sam was there and recorded the video on his phone. I'll make sure he deletes it, but you owe me. Him, okay. I can't lose Bob. Not after last night. Her, what happened last night? Him, he's upset that you came home late and drunk. Her, no. Something happened that changed everything. Him, so, by dancing with me, you asked your husband for forgiveness? Her, you're disgusting. Last night was unforgettable because Bob and I love each other. Now give me back my underwear and make sure that video is erased. Him, it sounded like you were some kind of woman. Bob deserves better than me. He's lucky to have you. He took care of you, didn't he? Her, I don't need anyone to take care of me. Just be the friend you pretend to be and do what I ask, please. Him, I'll help you, and then you'll take me to dinner. Her, just make sure no one sees this video, and I'll do what you ask. There was nothing else until last Monday. Him, I heard girls' night was canceled. How about we have dinner together? Her, this isn't a good idea. I'm sorry. Him, come on. Your husband will be at work, and the girls left you. A night out with a friend. We can meet at the cafe like old times, and you owe me. Her, okay. I'll see you at the Red Horse at 8. Him, no. I'll see you at the Tift, located in the Sheraton Hotel. They have good liquor, and I don't want to deal with drunk idiots. If we drink too much, I'll get a room. Her, okay, but it's just dinner with a friend, and thank you for making sure the video didn't get out. It's bad that they found out about it at work. Him, Sam already deleted the video, and soon someone else will do something outrageous and distract everyone's attention. They agreed to meet at 8. Bob thought about it and realized this could be the beginning of the end of their marriage. Chapter 2. How many times had he seen his wife go out on dates with other men in the hotel restaurant bar? How could this situation lead to a positive outcome? How could she not think about intimacy? Closing the messages on her phone, he plugged it into the charger, undressed, and got into bed alone. He couldn't sleep that night. When Thursday arrived, she came downstairs in the little black dress she always wore when they went out together. She looked absolutely beautiful. She noticed him sitting at the table and was surprised by his early arrival. I didn't expect you back so soon, honey, she said, her voice trembling. We need to talk, Sharon, he replied calmly. This conversation is extremely important. Please sit down. She sat down nervously and tried to take his hand, but he pulled it away. I already know there's no bachelorette party today. I know you're going out with Luke Jonas behind my back, he began. Let me explain, but he interrupted her, slamming his fist on the table. I mean it, Sharon, listen to me, he shouted, his voice full of frustration. You don't get to talk until I'm finished. Sharon recoiled, tears beginning to form in her eyes. He looked at her coldly before continuing. I know you kissed that asshole during lunch. I know you danced with him at the Red Horse Bar. I know you even took off your underwear and gave it to him after some seductive moves on the dance floor. I know your sudden interest in me 3 weeks ago was caused by your excitement over him. Tonight, you have a date with him at the hotel bar where your boyfriend has a table reserved. I don't know if you've already had an intimate relationship with him, and I don't know what's stopping you from doing so. He paused, trying to contain his anger. Sharon, you deceived me by hiding information about Luke, your risky behavior, and your outings with your friends. To be honest, I'm devastated, and my faith in you is shattered. I'm not sure I want to save our marriage. And it seems you're not looking to save it either. That's why I'm offering you 3 options. He held up one finger. Option 1 is you leave and be with your lover. Even if you do nothing tonight, this decision will mean the end of our marriage, and I won't want to save it. Then he held up a second finger. Option 2, we sit here all night while you try to convince me to make an effort to save our marriage. The task before you won't be easy because I find it difficult to trust anything you say. Despite this, I have a glimmer of hope because my love for you and for our daughter is of great importance to me. He admitted there was a 50% chance he'd be willing to try the third option. Option 3, you take me with you to meet your lover, and you demand, right in front of me, that he never speak to you or contact you again. After that, you will give me the opportunity to speak with him alone for at least 15 minutes, away from strangers. This gesture will show the utmost respect and increase my willingness to cooperate with you. If you haven't been intimate with him, then I guarantee I will dedicate myself completely to making our relationship a success. But if you have slept with him, then there may be no chance of saving our marriage. She looked like she was going to be sick. Her expression was one of pure horror. The question hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. She seemed to be fighting the urge to vomit as she looked at him. "Bob, I'm sorry for everything, and I really need to talk to you," she said urgently. "As for your question, who's going to drive? You or me?" He was stunned by her unexpected choice. He had assumed she would spend the whole night trying to justify her actions. By agreeing to meet her lover, she had gained some points, but he was still deeply hurt. He took the keys and followed her to the car without hesitation. As he opened the door for her, she was on the verge of tears. When he got on the road, she looked at him. "I've ruined everything, haven't I?" she asked quietly. "Yes, Sharon, you've really messed up," Bob replied, concentrating on the road. "What can I do to fix this?" she asked. He thought for a moment. He had several ideas in his head. "Well, first of all, from now on, complete honesty. It goes without saying, but it seems you think it's okay to hide information I need to know or constantly deceive me. Also, you have to find a way to earn my trust back. I don't know how you plan to do this, but to be honest, I wasn't the one who broke the trust. There's one more point that, in my opinion, doesn't require clear wording, but I'll say it anyway. He is no longer part of your life. If we are to continue our relationship, you should not speak to him at work. You don't need to ask him how his day was. If he ends up in the same bar as you, you must leave. If you can't leave, contact me immediately. You refuse to accept drinks or gifts from him and completely stop all communication. No matter what he says. When we get back tonight, you will tell me everything. I admit I was too absorbed in this project, and I will take some of the responsibility. If you have any resentment towards me, please express it. And finally, sign us up for a marriage counseling session. If you want to choose a counselor yourself, don't be shy. Ron might be able to recommend someone." After Bob finished speaking, a message suddenly arrived on her phone. She glanced at it quickly, and her face turned even paler. "It's him, asking where I am," she whispered softly. Bob held out his hand, and she handed him the phone without a word. He began to check her text messages. There were several messages sent earlier that day. Him, "Hey, I booked a room with a jacuzzi. Maybe we can relax after we eat. Bring a bikini." Her, "You can't get me drunk enough to take a hot bath with you." "No, I'm not bringing a bikini." Him, "We'll see. You know what happens when you drink. Maybe you won't need a bikini." The next message read, "Where are you?" "While waiting for you, I decided to have a glass of wine." Bob replied, "Running a little late. I have a surprise for you." Him, "You should have brought a bikini with you." Bob handed the phone back to his wife. She read the messages and just lowered her head. "You realize these messages aren't helping your case, right? Judging by today's messages, you had already planned to meet him tonight." "How much worse will it look if I keep checking more messages?" he asked, realizing how terrible it would be. "I have to ask," Bob began. "Do you think your messages today cross the line of inappropriate flirting? Can you understand that these conversations have completely destroyed my trust in you?" He heard her crying. "Bob, I swear I only wanted to have dinner tonight. I never intended to sleep with him." But Bob couldn't help but look at her with disbelief. "Were you going to give him your underwear like you did a few weeks ago after taking it off?" He didn't think she could get any paler, but it turned out Bob was wrong. "Sharon, we've almost reached our destination. You should touch up your makeup and prepare for what you're going to say to Luke. And please, refrain from crying," he said as he lowered the visor and took a napkin from the glove compartment. Gaining strength, she wiped away her tears. She carefully applied her mascara. In a calmer voice, she asked Bob, "I understand why you think Luke is playing me. When you mentioned it, I realized you were right. But Bob, how could I not have realized that despite my recent decisions which may indicate otherwise. I'm not a naive girl. I've rejected men more attractive and sophisticated than Luke. So why did he choose me? That's one of the reasons I find it hard to believe what you're saying now, Sharon. You're a beautiful and intelligent woman who should be able to see through this deceit. Imagine if I picked up some woman in a bar and then lied to you, saying I was going to dinner with her tonight. It's no wonder you feel so angry and resentful, Bob expressed. Her complexion seemed to have returned to normal, and her voice was a bit stronger. Okay, I made a mistake, and now I have to find a way to fix it. Thank you for giving me another chance, she said, leaning in to kiss her husband, but he turned his head at the last moment, allowing her to kiss his cheek. I won't get over this easily. Not in the long run, Bob said. She looked at him, surprised. They were usually very affectionate. I hope we can work it out in the end. What should I tell him? She asked as they arrived at the restaurant and found a parking spot. Bob turned off the car and tried to contain his anger. What do I want you to tell him, Sharon? Our relationship is in jeopardy because of what you did with that idiot. You've destroyed the foundation of our marriage. Maybe our daughter will spend Thanksgiving with you and Christmas with me. I need you to understand this. So tell him whatever you think is necessary. After a moment of silence, she sighed and opened the car door. When they reached the restaurant and the hotel, she made a barely perceptible gesture as if she wanted to take her husband's hand. He didn't resist, but he didn't reciprocate either. As they entered the restaurant, the red-haired hostess greeted them from behind the counter and asked if they had reserved a table together. Before Bob could answer, his wife intervened, mentioning they were meeting someone who had already arrived. The waitress confirmed her observation and offered to show them to the table. Since Bob didn't know what this man looked like, he followed his wife. She gave her husband a gentle nudge and pointed towards the back of the restaurant, where a man was sitting by the hotel door, engrossed in his phone. With determined steps, she approached the table and stopped without sitting down. The man looked up, saw her, and smiled broadly. It was only when he noticed Bob standing behind her that his expression changed. The smile vanished, and his eyes narrowed slightly. He's worried about our relationship, and I have to admit that after our conversation, I share his concerns. For the first time in our marriage, I've given him a reason to doubt my loyalty. I am determined to correct the breach of trust that was caused by my association with you. I don't want to have any more contact with you. Please refrain from calling me, texting me, or any other contact with me. I take full responsibility for the current state of our relationship and have decided to end it. My husband now knows about my improper actions at the Red Horse Bar. I intend to do everything possible to fix our relationship with him. I will report this entire situation to the Human Resources Department tomorrow. I will tell them that any attempt to involve me in non-work-related conversations will be unwelcome. While my husband talks to you, I'll be sitting at the bar, she concluded, giving Bob a quick kiss on the cheek. She whispered a soft apology. Her eyes met her husband's briefly. As she left, Bob felt a sense of relief. Surprisingly, the situation was resolved even better than he had expected. As he sat down across from the timid playboy, Bob couldn't help but size him up. With his dark hair, slender figure, and impeccable fashion sense, one could argue he was attractive, but assessing men had never been his strong suit. It was difficult to determine his height while he was sitting, but he noticed his persistent gaze on the wine glass in front of him, which only reinforced his suspicions. Bob needed to maintain his composure and think about what to do. He had an idea of what he wanted exactly, but he would have to improvise as the conversation went on. Bob was not a quick thinker. So you decided it would be a surprise to see her in a bikini, Bob said with a half smile. Do you really think she told you everything? He replied, smirking. Now that he was in front of Bob, he felt calm. It was a situation he could handle. Actually, yes. I've known her for 10 years and been married to her for 8. I think I understand her better than a pretty boy who's been stalking her for 3 months, Bob said, keeping a smile on his face. The waiter approached and asked if they could get them drinks. Bob ordered a double Johnny Walker Black on the rocks. She definitely knows how to please a man, he said with a smirk. Luke glanced at the wine glass he had ordered for her. Yes, that's true this time, Bob replied, smiling broadly. But I don't think you're speaking from experience, Luke taunted. Do you need pictures then? He laughed. Luke was trying to provoke Bob. Bob resisted the temptation to reach across the table and instead just laughed. You don't have any pictures? If she had gone that far with you, wouldn't you have had to put something in her drink? The kind of stuff would-be rapists use these days. Luke's surprise confirmed Bob's assumption. Luke recoiled as Bob leaned closer to him over the table. Anger surged through him. You disgusting coward. I should teach you a lesson right here and now, but I can't risk going too far. I don't want to end up in jail. I offer my wife 3 options, and now I'm offering you the same, Bob said, pointing at him with determination. First, you will leave immediately, apologize to my wife right now, and quit your job tomorrow. I won't retaliate, but you have to leave town. Second, you admit to the police that you drugged my wife. You'll do your time, and then you'll stay away from my wife. I'll be watching you, but I won't touch you. I've signed us both up for boxing classes, which start in 4 weeks. We'll get in the ring, sign the injury waivers, and we won't leave until we're both exhausted. And when you come to your senses, you'd better stay away from my wife. Then you'll leave town. As Bob spoke, the waiter brought his whiskey. Bob took a large sip, feeling the warmth of the alcohol. Time to collect my thoughts. You probably think I'm naive. Why would I accept any of these options? Luke laughed. Bob smiled back with what he hoped was a threatening look. Because you don't want to spend the rest of your sad life constantly looking over your shoulder every time you walk to your car in the dark. You'll be afraid that I or one of my accomplices is lurking nearby, ready to hurt you. Every time you open your door, you won't be sure that I or one of my accomplices won't break in, restrain you, and hurt you. When you go to a bar, you'll be afraid that I or one of my friends will spike your drink and expose you to unspeakable actions before hurting you. You won't take risks. You're a coward. That's what your wife said after I met her last night, Bob said. The color returned to Luke's face as Bob took another sip of whiskey. He reached into his pocket and activated the voice recorder on his phone, hoping to record the conversation. Bob realized he should have planned this night better. You plan to drug my wife and assault her, you bastard. Are you willing to risk a life of agony, assuming I won't take action? It was time to confront Bob. The drugs were supposed to prepare her for the arrival of my friends. In a moment of desperation, Bob reached out and grabbed Luke by the neck, pulling him closer. Although he couldn't punch with full force while sitting, he still managed to hear a satisfying crack as Luke's nose broke. Luke screamed, covering his nose and threatening to call the police. Bob persistently persuaded him to call, calling him a fool and suggesting the authorities check the wine in the glass and listen to the recording of his confession. The police arrived on the scene 10 minutes later, as 2 officers were nearby having lunch at a Subway. They quickly recorded Bob's testimony and took the remaining wine and glass for analysis. During the search, a bag of white powder was found near the hatch. When Bob was asked to provide additional information, Luke requested a lawyer and refused to continue the conversation. The police then listened to the recording Bob made, confiscating Bob's phone as evidence. The recording showed Luke discussing illegal drugs and a possible assault. It was almost 4 a.m. before Bob and Sharon were finally allowed to leave the police station. After much reflection following his testimony, the officer praised Bob for nearly 15 minutes, emphasizing how he had prevented the assault on his wife. By the time he finished, she was visibly shaken. Luke was still with the police. They used their phone to quickly report the situation to Bob's parents. They calmed them down and took care of Cy, deciding to take her to the zoo. After parking in the garage and turning off the car, the couple looked into each other's eyes. She unbuckled her seatbelt and pulled Bob towards her, hugging him tightly. After letting her cry on his shoulder for a while, Bob gently pushed her away. Sharon, we still need to talk, but it's very late. Let's get some rest. Tomorrow we'll go to work and spend the day sorting things out. Does that sound okay? Yes, Bob. Going to bed sounds great, she replied softly. Can I sleep next to you? No, Sharon, he said. The next morning, he woke up and saw her clinging to him. He allowed himself to believe that everything would get better in the end. Despite this, Bob understood there were still several conversations to be had before making a decision. He understood it was important not to rush. Sitting up, Bob gave her perfect buttocks a playful pat before suggesting a walk. He didn't want to start a serious conversation on an empty stomach. Despite the temptation, Bob resisted until the issues were resolved. The next morning, they had breakfast at the International Pancake House, discussing Cy and their upcoming visit to Bob's parents. The conversation was positive and relaxed. After finishing their coffee, they paid the bill and returned home. They sat at the kitchen table and prepared to address the issues that had arisen. "I'll start," Bob said. "I'm not going to talk about Luke's identity. You know who he is. You said a few days ago you were satisfying him and calling me a coward. Is that true?" "No," she replied. "The most negative communication with him was that unfortunate night at the Red Horse. I admit the severity of my behavior, but I didn't cross any lines." "How can I trust you?" Bob asked. "You lied to me about a recent date with him and didn't disclose the details of that incident at the bar, not to mention your entire history with him. I felt it was necessary to be honest. I was thinking about it, and an idea came to me," Bob said. "What if we take a lie detector test?" "You mean a polygraph test?" she asked. Bob confirmed. She nodded. "Yes, let's arrange one. You can ask me anything you want. Just tell me when and where." Her sincerity was evident. Bob knew these tests weren't always accurate, but it would be easier for him if they were true. "I'll see what I can arrange. It might take some time, but it's worth considering," he said. "Actually, it might take longer than expected," Bob added. She smiled. "This is a good starting point. We can consider the extent of your involvement later, but my next question will probably be the most difficult. This is what hurts me the most and has the biggest impact on our relationship. How do we move forward? The underwear incident baffled me, and I understand I don't like it, but I get it. I find it hard to accept that you approached another man without telling me. If you thought it was just a platonic friendship, I can sympathize with you. But what I can't understand, and what makes me want to walk away before I feel even more pain, is that you claimed you were going out with your friends when you actually had dinner with him. This blatant lie, without a thought for the consequences, shattered me into pieces. When you mentioned you were dating another man, it was heartbreaking." Bob recalled how tears welled up in his eyes. He felt completely powerless. "Bob, all I can do is try to explain my thoughts at the time. First, I want to apologize for hurting you with my lies. When you decided to take on this project, I couldn't help but feel that I wasn't important to you. I want to make it clear that I don't blame you or your work for this. I know how important this project is to you. I just wanted to share the feelings I was having at that moment. I started to feel bad. And Vicky's sister made an offer that appealed to me. She mentioned seeking romance elsewhere. I didn't want it to be perceived as cheating while you were absorbed in the project. I started to realize I might find what I was looking for elsewhere. And then Luke stepped in. I didn't understand at first, but he managed to make me feel like an important person. He showed a genuine interest in my daily life, family, and hobbies, making our conversations mostly about me. As Bob tried to hide his emotions, she watched him. It wasn't until Vicky ran into me during lunch that I realized my actions. I used Luke to fill the void I thought I couldn't find with you, but I still wanted to establish a relationship with you. That night, when everything got out of control, I didn't plan to invite him or his friends. They arrived before my friends did, and Luke even bought drinks for everyone, including me. I found myself more intoxicated than ever. I made some regrettable decisions, which you are aware of, but we also shared an incredible night together, which made me feel even more conflicted. How could I be so reckless with him and share such wonderful moments with you? She stood up and poured herself a glass of water, taking a few sips before speaking. Then a video appeared. "I foresaw your anger, and I understand why you're upset. If the situation had been reversed and you were kissing another woman while intoxicated, I would have been furious too. And I knew it would be even worse, because after our passionate encounter, I would ask you if you were thinking of someone else. Trying to hide my mistake, I lured Luke in, feeling obligated. I agreed to go to dinner with him when my friends couldn't make it. I felt lonely, thinking you wouldn't be home until late at night. In a moment of weakness, I made a terrible decision, and I deeply regret it. Our relationship has always been based on trust, and I destroyed it." Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she remained calm. Bob knew she was hiding something. "Oh my God," he muttered. "We're not back to what we were yet, but in time, we can be. If you're willing to dedicate yourself completely to this, then I will be too." Bob and Sharon went to therapy together, and resolving their issues was a turning point. The most important lesson for him was that he didn't know the woman he had once married. The counselor advised Sharon to take a polygraph test, and she agreed, although Bob saw uncertainty in her eyes. After she took the polygraph test, Bob realized that what his wife had told him was a lie. He knew he wanted to see the video Luke had mentioned. Bob visited him, hoping to discover the whole truth and see a video with his wife. The conversation with Luke was tense, and for honesty, Luke demanded that Bob drop the charges against him. Bob had no choice but to agree to Luke's terms. He understood that if he didn't find out the whole truth about Sharon, he couldn't trust her. That same day, Bob received a video in the mail from a friend of Luke's. As he opened it on his computer, tears welled up in Bob's eyes. Sharon, Luke, and two of his friends were participating in intimate acts in a hotel room. The entire process was filmed on a phone camera. It was obvious that Sharon was drunk, but she didn't care what was happening. She was enjoying intimacy with three men. That same day, Bob went to his office and changed the locks on the house while Sharon was at work. Bob was furious at the act of the woman to whom he had given his life. He dreamed of revenge. He wanted her to suffer while his daughter was with her parents. Bob posted the incriminating video on several adult websites and also posted it on social media. This was going to be a complete failure for Sharon. He had only one wish: to protect his daughter from all of this. He decided to leave the state in the near future with his daughter. With all this, Bob did not keep his promise to Luke. He did not withdraw his accusation at the police station. The following weeks were difficult for Bob as he implemented his plan to leave the state. While Sharon cried bitterly at her parents' house, Bob and Cy left town. The divorce was finalized, and Sharon was left with nothing. No husband, no daughter, no home, and no means of subsistence. During these few weeks, Bob managed to declare bankruptcy, sell his house, and leave his unfaithful wife in poverty. Sharon had to decide for a long time how to live because she was disgraced. Many friends and family members saw her intimacy with several men, not to mention those people who did not know her personally. Sharon understood that she had hurt her husband, but she didn't understand how he could do this to her. Her life became chaos. She was fired from her job and couldn't get another one due to her reputation. Sharon's nerves were frayed. She drank a lot and stayed out of the house until something terrible happened. Intoxicated, she drove her father's car to Vicky's house to tell her that she had thrown her life into chaos. Sharon understood how Bob found out about everything, but fate was not on her side. In an instant, Sharon's car rolled over several times. A terrible accident took her life. Bob and Cy stood over Sharon's grave and knew that she had brought this upon herself through her own foolishness.